Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about shadow work journaling, and this might be something that you are new to because this is something that not a lot of people talk about unless you are really into spirituality and working through your triggers and your traumas, and that's something that not a lot of people want to do. So in this video I'm going to show you how to do shadow work journaling. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Shelly and this is I Love Journaling, where I help you build a daily journaling practice to help improve your life in all areas. And as you can see in today's video, we're going to be talking about shadow work, which is a really awesome thing, and I'm going to explain everything about what shadow work is. So all of the information that is in this video is coming from my shadow work journal. And so I have a lot of information to share with you. So grab a notebook if you want to follow along with me. I'm going to be giving you some journal prompts. Or if you want, you can order this and download it right away, and then you can print it yourself and have the printed pages with the lines and everything else. So for now, we're going to start with why it is important to do journal work, or shadow work with journaling particularly. You can do shadow work in a variety of ways, but of course, this is a journaling channel, so we're going to talk about how you can do that through journaling. This is simply the act of examining all of the aspects of yourself that you have kept hidden or suppressed. We hide and suppress parts of our personality when the outside world judges or shames us for these things, therefore giving us the false belief that these things are bad. And so a lot of people, when they hear the word shadow work, they think, oh, there's parts of me that are evil, or, things like that. And that's really not the way it is. So shadow is really things that you have hidden. And hidden can be anything. It doesn't, some of the things can be seen as bad in some people's perspective, but really it's usually things that as a child you tried to express, which are normal human emotions. And our parents, our teachers, older people that are, trying to keep us under control will try to control us by making sure that we don't show those emotions, or that we don't act out parts of our personality that we are naturally acting out. And so that is the only reason why it's called shadow work, because it's been pushed down. And this is basically not cool because we need to, as I'm going to explain in one of these other slides here, we need to be the whole version of ourselves, which means everything that we were born with, all of the traits and aspects of our personality that we were born with and develop as we become children. So the truth is, as humans, we are meant to experience, process, and express the whole spectrum of feelings and emotions, even our unique traits. So what this means is, like I just said, we need to experience all of the feelings and emotions that is possible for humans. We also need to process them. Part of why journaling is so great is because it helps you process. It helps you express. And that's what shadow work is getting to all of those things that we have not been able to process and express. These feelings, emotions, and traits are not inherently wrong, but as children, and even sometimes later in life, we learn to push them aside when the world gives us any indication that they are not wanted or accepted. You're probably thinking right now of so many examples of this where you've been pushed down. You've been taught to do things the way other people do them and not the way you want to do them. So that's the whole point of shadow work, is to become yourself again, become your true self again. So by learning what we have suppressed, we can learn to accept those parts of us, integrate them, and heal. We cannot be whole until we heal all parts of ourselves. So we need to accept these things. We need to, and by integrate, that means we need to become more identified with these parts and show them and express them and identify them and acknowledge them. And this is the only way we can heal, because if you've ever learned in anything in life, it's anytime you try to push anything down, it's going to come back. You really can't ignore or avoid things. You're not going to be healthy that way. So you can learn more about shadow work by studying the famous psychiatrist Carl Jung, who is the originator of using shadow work for psychological healing. So everybody's probably heard of him. So just check him out if you're interested in learning. He also talks about dreams, and I've got another video about dream work that I'm going to share with you later. And so if you're really interested in getting down to this, the deep level of learning who you are, then this is a great video to keep watching. Plus, study some Carl Jung and learn about dreams and learn about psychology. It's really interesting. So, how to do shadow work through journaling. This workbook, which I'm going through this printable book that I'm showing you here, it's going to cover journal prompts and exercises. So these are the main two ways that we're doing this, and if you feel you need more assistance, you can find a therapist that is familiar with shadow work. You can also find many guided meditations on YouTube if therapy is not accessible for you. So there are lots of videos out there about shadow work and journal prompts, and just in general exercises for your mental health. And I've got a couple on this channel as well. I do have a lot of products, printable workbooks, journals, planners, and all sorts of things dealing with mental health issues. So like anxiety, depression, stress, panic attacks, all of those sorts of things. And it's all kind of related to shadow work, because really a lot of times anxiety and panic attack comes from shadow aspects that you are not acknowledging. And so when you do shadow work, you're probably going to be eliminating a lot of the depression and anxiety and panic issues that you have. So it's just a great, such a great tool. So not every journal prompt will be applicable to every shadow aspect or trauma or trigger. I've included a variety of questions to allow for any type. So remember this: if a question is not applicable to you, you can skip it. So the exercise number 1 is identifying your conscious shadow traits. So these are ones that you're consciously aware of, that you are aware that you are suppressing them. Most of the shadow aspects are buried in our subconscious mind, however, and that is the whole point of why we need to dig deep to find them. But sometimes we are well aware of these aspects and we just choose to ignore them. So this takes a lot of courage to do this exercise, and right here are listed some shadow traits just to get you started. Maybe some of these are ringing a bell for you. Maybe some of these you can already tell that they don't fit you. So just go through this list and write down a couple that you want to start off with. So these are anger, depression, anxiety, sexuality, introverted traits or extroverted traits, creativity, your childlike side, impulsivity, flaws, weaknesses, or your ego. So again, this is just a beginning list. There's probably a lot of traits out there that deal with, your personality. So just start with this list here. This covers most of them. So then moving on to exercise number 2, identifying your traumas. So shadow work and trauma go hand in hand. First, you will identify your traumas, and there are usually 2 kinds of traumas: big T, which are accidents, abuse, and things like that, and small t traumas, which are chronic stresses and minor incidents, things that are not too troubling. So here is an important note that everybody handles trauma differently, which means that a small t trauma to one person could be a big T trauma to someone else, and vice versa. So classify them as you see fit, depending on the severity of how they have affected your life. So here is a trauma list. If you're having any trouble thinking of any traumas that you might have, here are some common ones. So these are going to be things that might trigger you or bring up negative memories. This is a really big list, and I spent a lot of time gathering up the things on this list. So let's go through these. Death of a parent, death of a sibling, death of a grandparent, death of any beloved family member, death of a pet, death of a friend, abandonment by a parent, abandonment by a partner, neglect by a parent, neglect by a partner, physical abuse by a parent, physical abuse by a partner, mental or emotional abuse, car accident, life-threatening injuries, minor injuries, near-death experience, betrayal by a partner, losing a job, financial struggles, homelessness, drug use, alcohol use, poor self-esteem, work-related issues, cancer or disease, mental illness, witnessing death, or any traumatic event. So as you can see, I covered a lot of things on this list, but there might be something out there. There might be somebody that says, oh, but this is something that happened to me that's not on this list. So go ahead and write that down in your notebook. Exercise 3 is identify your triggers. So this is a little bit different than traumas. If you're still struggling to identify your shadow aspects or your traumas, you can learn to recognize what triggers you or what makes you uncomfortable. You may be consciously aware of these or not. The trick here is to become conscious of when you react with emotions rather than responding. So this is something that you're probably going to need to work through on a daily basis. This is not really something that's a one and done kind of thing. And a lot of times when it comes to healing, especially with mental health, you might spiral around. You might circle around to something more than once. So you might think you did it, and then you might have another trigger later on and be like, okay, maybe I didn't fully heal myself there. So this is something that, don't beat yourself up about this if you have to go over these things more than once. So what you want to do is set an intention to pay attention to your triggers. And then as you go about your day, you're going to take note of the triggers that make you uncomfortable. Anything that makes you mad, anything that makes you angry, sad, depressed, anxious, any of those bad feelings. So a lot of these here are some common triggers like loud noises, getting yelled at, sexual situations, money problems, anniversaries or events, jealousy, being rejected, being judged or criticized, being teased or ridiculed, loneliness, relationship drama. Even something on the news can trigger you, any insecurity or addiction to people or things. So in the printable workbook I have, it has this page where you will list out your 10 biggest shadow aspects. So this is available in this printable workbook that I have, but if you don't buy this, you can just do this on your own. Write 1 through 10 and keep this as your running list of your biggest shadow aspects. So this is the ones that you really want to work on from the last 3 exercises that we've been through. So these are going to be your 10 biggest ones. You might not have 10, you might have more than 10, but this is just a great place to start. So you will keep coming back to this list of 10 and work through these one by one using the journal prompts that I'm going to give you. And these are also journal prompts that are all in this workbook. And I'll be showing you in a little bit what the pages look like, but for now we're just going to go through each of these. If you're following along, get your notebook and answer each question for each shadow aspect. So let's say that one of your shadow aspects is that when you were a child, you were taught to be quiet and not express yourself. So you learned how to be a quiet person and you just always kept to yourself. But you know that deep down inside, you didn't really want to be quiet, but this is how you were raised. So now you're going to answer each question with that aspect in mind. So I'm going to go through these. If you want to pause the video and just go through these, then you can. So the first one is, what is your earliest memory of this shadow aspect? In other words, where and when did it originate? The earliest possible memory that you can remember having this. The next one is, what feelings and emotions are associated with this shadow aspect? For example, fear, worry, shame, or embarrassment. The next question is, what lesson do you think this shadow aspect has to teach you? So try looking at it from this perspective of it or the other person involved or the situation, and try to think what would be the lesson in this situation, or even think of it as if a friend of yours was having this problem, what would the lesson that they should learn be? The next one is to write a forgiveness statement to the person involved, not condoning the behavior, but releasing the resentment that you have towards them. You can also try this for any situation or event, speaking to it as if it were a person. Moving on, now there's another page of questions. So this one is, what is the story or belief you have been telling yourself about the shadow aspect? Such an example would be, I am a victim, or I am not good enough, or I am unlovable. These are 3 of the most common ones. The next question is, what benefit do you get from holding on to this belief or reacting to this trigger? The next question is, what about your life would change if you were free of these beliefs, emotions, or triggers? And then the last question is, what are some alternative ways to respond rather than react regarding this belief, emotion, or trigger? So if you want to get this printable shadow work journal, you can download it instantly. There's 28 pages. I went through most of the pages with you, but a lot of them are going to be ones that you can write on. So you're going to learn why it's important to do shadow work and how to use it. Basically what I went through in this video. Identify the traumas. So you're going to have this list, easy to see. And you can print this off as much as you want. You can even give this to a friend and print it off for them. It makes a great gift, actually. So then, like I said, you create your list, and here's the pages. There's 2 pages of journal prompts for each, and as you can see, each page has journal lines, so you can just, write right away after the question. And that's something that I love about the way that I make my journal pages is I put them on a page with the lines, because this is like a pet peeve of mine. I see journal prompts all over on Facebook, on YouTube, on Pinterest, but they're always just a big long paragraph of questions. And what you need to do then is to save it and look at it, and then you got to have a separate notebook or something, and then you have to kind of follow along and keep track of where you left off. There really is it's not set up to be like a workbook, and that's why I like to make my workbook pages like this with the journal prompts and then the space, because also the other benefit of that is when you go back to read these, which you should because that's very helpful, then you will see what the question was. There's none of this having to repeat the question on another paper. There isn't none of this having to just write down your answers, but then if you just know the answers, you don't know what the questions were because they're not on the same page. So that's why I like to make them like this. And then, of course, these pages too of the exercises, they're all helpful being all on one page, and they kind of walk you through how to do it. So if you're interested in downloading this printable shadow work journal, the description will have the link. And I also have another journal here. It's actually a video about dream journaling where, like I mentioned earlier, dreams are the key to our subconscious mind. And if you can get really good at journaling your dreams, you're well on your way to healing your inner child and all of your shadow traits. So be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.